In today's video, I am going to replace the door on this vehicle. Now, this is not an instructional video. I'm not encouraging anybody to cut a door off of their vehicle and replace it. This is just a project I'm doing. This is an old vehicle. I actually have what I call a parts vehicle for this van. The motor went in it. Now, the reason I'm going to change out this door should be relatively obvious here. It's a lot easier for me, where I have a parts vehicle for this, to change out this door than to do the body work required to fix this mess here. So, again, not encouraging anybody to do this. This is just a little project I'm doing, and I'm going to videotape the process as I go. So here's the door I'm going to install. I took the boot from the body of the vehicle and I cut as much wire as I could, leaving all sorts of excess wire here, because I'm not going to need that length of wire, because there's obviously going to be wire on the old door too in the boot there. But basically I'm leaving myself as much wire on either side, so I'll have lots if I need it. And again, this is just what I'm doing. I am not recommending to cut into these wiring harnesses. The proper way to do this would be to remove the upholstery, trace that wiring through. This is just what I'm doing on an old beater vehicle. So here's where the wiring harness comes through, under this rubber boot here on the door that I'm going to remove. I have removed the battery and the fuses for any circuits to go through here. There's going to be power windows, power locks, that type of thing. So I definitely don't want to cut into this with any power on any of those circuits. So here's the unit here that keeps our door from opening too wide. As I open the door, that's as far as it'll go. This piece of metal is held in place by this pin. I'm going to get rid of that pin. In this case, you just tap it out. That'll let me open the door wider to get access to the wiring harness. Watch your fingers if you're doing this. There, now that'll open wider. And here's that rubber boot over the wiring harness that I was talking about. That's fitted into the door, which is on the right side as we're looking here. So I'm going to pull that back, revealing our wires. It's kind of angled in this case. And this is where I was talking about. The body of the vehicle is on this side. The door is over here. So I want to leave as much wire on this side as I can. So push that boot back, and hopefully you can see our wires there. If I hold that boot out of place there, maybe you can. There they are. So I put a tie wrap around in front of the boot because I want to keep those wires out while I cut them. I don't want them slipping in there and me missing an inch or so of wiring while I'm doing this. So now I'll take the big cutters, put them in there, and snip them off, leaving as much as wire as possible for me to play with. And again, like I say, not recommending any of this, but if you're doing it, you're definitely going to make sure that you've disabled all the electricity to everything here. I've got two door hinges with 17mm bolts. Coincidentally, one of them is actually loosened off here. I didn't do that. That was already that way. So I'm going to loosen these two bolts off, a little at a time. And the ones down below, hopefully we can get them in there, down here. So, take my, did I say 17mm, 12mm bolts? Loosen those off. And whenever I loosen anything off, whether there's multiple bolts, I'll loosen each one off. Do the ones up top. Loosen them all first before you get too aggressive about anything. Make sure you don't have any seized. And then kind of go back and forth like that. So I'll get them all loosened off. I'm not going to take them right off because this door is going to fall off of here at one point. So I'm going to build a little something to stabilize everything. So I fully removed 2 of the bolts. I left this one in place and it's backed right off. And I've left this bolt down here in place. Now this would be a great time to have an extra set of hands around here, but I don't. So I put one of my vehicle ramps over this way. Just put something there for the door to drop onto as I release these bolts. So I'm going to leave this top one in place till the last. I'm going to back off this one down here. Like I say, if you got an extra set of hands handy, this would be a great time to have my sons hold this door. But I don't. So if you're doing something like this is a real good time to start being careful about your fingers. Anyway, I'm going to keep that top bolt in place. Get rid of this bottom one here. Ready at any moment for my finger to take a bang there. Okay. Now, up to the top one. Everything kind of strategically placed here. This is the old door, so I don't really care about what happens to it. Anyway, you get the general idea. I'll back this last bolt off of here. It's the last thing holding this door in place. And I would stop the video camera, except for my hands are kind of full at the moment, so I'll have to bore you with the rest of this process here. A little strategic trying to balance this door with one hand and get this bolt off. And of course, the socket I had, the 12mm socket I had was too long, so there we go. Set that aside. A removed door. So here's our new to us door, and there's that boot we were talking about. I'm going to use the one that was on the body of the existing vehicle here, so I'll just pull that off. Okay, I've got the new door on. I got a bolt in place on the top hinge, and I have a bolt in place on the bottom hinge. I would have liked to have taped putting it on there, but as I say, my kids are in school, nobody to help me maneuver this door, and I basically have a Lego block system built down here to stabilize it. So anyways, I'll tighten those two up and then get the other two bolts in also. Now I'm going to get that door pin in place. So I just move the door till the hole in that hinge lines up. Place that. Get that lined up relatively straight. Take my hammer, get that little top. I have to lube that up there with with some graphite or something. I'll spray at the moment. And now, before I get too ambitious about anything else, I got my bolts tightened up, I pinned in place. I'm just going to move these wires out of the way. Hopefully that'll let the door close. I'm just going to make sure that this door will close, as I say, before I get too ambitious about much else. Well, stuff hanging in the way, that doesn't help. And it does. So now I can go on with the rest of the plan and start doing the wiring. So here we have 9 wires that go into the door for the power window and power lock circuits. And these ones up on the top are the same color wires heading off towards the fuse panel for the circuits for the door. So I have to join these together. This is going to be a tedious process. A couple of different ways you can do that. You can use a connector like this, strip the wire, put each wire in the end and crimp it. Scotch lock connectors, which are a great option because you don't even have to strip the wire. I did a video on using Scotch lock connectors. The only problem is that's not going to work here because it's a cramped space. I'm not going to go into that because, as I said, this is just kind of a project that I'm videotaping as I'm doing, and I'm not encouraging people to do this anyways. So anyway, tedious process here. I'm just going to basically join all those wires up. And as you can see, they're all obviously the same color. Green, yellow here. There's a green, yellow there. And I'll just mate all those wires up. If you're ever doing something like this, something to watch for, because this can be misleading, is some of the color codes on these wires. For instance, this is a red-yellow wire. It's red with a yellow stripe. Its mate over on the other side is this wire, red with a yellow stripe. But it can be very easy sometimes to mix them up because, for instance, here's yellow with a red stripe. So you got to kind of just be careful and take a second look sometimes. So there's all my electrical connections made. That was a brutally tedious job because of the limited space there. I ended up having to solder and use shrink wrap around them, just because there wasn't really any room for any other type of connectors that would have been easier to use. Okay, at this point I have the battery reconnected. I'm going to check the circuits, make sure everything is working properly. So for starters, I'm going to open the door and see if the dome light comes on. And it does. I'm going to close the door. Dome light goes off. I'm going to make sure the power window works. And it does. I'm going to check the power locks. Hopefully I can hold this camera and reach over to the button. Power locks work for that door. So that's it for this video. Again, I am not encouraging anybody to go cutting doors off vehicles. It's just a project that I did.